Welcome to Baku in Azerbaijan, port city of the oil and gas rich Caspian Sea, historic gateway on the ancient Silk Road, and home to the 52-foot long carcass of a stinking dead sperm whale. Don't worry, it's not real. Sperm whales don't even live in this lake. Instead, it's a very convincing model intended to highlight the impact of climate change. Artists protest climate change? Yep, sure enough, the annual COP Global Environmental Gathering must be in town. Amongst the eminent world figures attending is the one-time Nobel Peace Prize winner, Professor Mohan Munasinghe, here for a joint Huawei UN Framework Convention on Climate Change Global Innovation Hub Forum about net zero cities. And amidst all the international environmental haggling and horse trading, net zero cities is a topic that, as a former vice chair of the prestigious Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, gives the professor some cause for positivity.
It's difficult to make progress at the national level because world leaders are great at promising things at conferences like this, but the delivery is rather poor. Now, in cities, I have found much greater progress in the sense that mayors of cities, community leaders and others are much more closely in touch with their people. So they know the needs, they know which buttons to press to get things done, and if they are visionary enough, they can convince the people to find those solutions.
And are they pressing those buttons in sufficient numbers?
In a few cities, and it's growing. But I'm working with cities now, and I find it much more productive, so that's the positive side. The negative side is that it's still extremely slow.
What are the cities that are not going fast enough? What's holding them back, do you think?
Well, there is a question of cities that are already locked in. I mean, the very large cities have a lot of existing infrastructure and essentially brownfield sites, which are much more difficult to retrofit. Some of the smaller cities, as well as cities in the developing world, the global south, where new infrastructure is coming in, the population is growing, which has also a negative side, but at least there is room for change, room for maneuver. And with also from the geopolitical side, the emergence of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, I think we have now a different paradigm for growth and development, which will probably be more sustainable, will fit in with not only the low carbon cities, but sustainable cities.
And what do we do to persuade those stakeholders, those critical stakeholders, to accelerate their pace of change and potentially to embrace technology, digital technology, even more quickly than they are?
Well, that's a two-part question. I mean, first we have to convince them about sustainability. And in a sense, if you talk about a clean environment, a livable city, a social and culturally balanced city, which has also economic opportunities, you create a kind of a vision.
Yes, that all sounds quite persuasive, yeah.
And then you bring in and you say, oh, by the way, digital technology can help you achieve all of these things. Otherwise, people get a bit turned off. And this is the job of the city mayor, the community leaders and others to lead the way if they are enlightened enough. Of course, there are risks, but then it is up to the policymakers and the planners to take care of the risks. Because certainly from the economic side, we can have productivity and other things. But there's also the inequality aspect, because if it only brings prosperity to the elites and so on, that's not good enough. So the environmental side, certainly with more efficient resource use, reduced energy use and carbon emissions. It's good for the environment, but you have then the problem of e-waste and other things, all these computers and mobile phones, and one has to dispose of those as well. So in other words, you have to show the benefits to the people, but avoid the risks.
Yes.
And then you can get the acceptance to move forward. Plus, you can start with certain key cities which are kind of the role models. And then the other cities say, hey, they did that, why don't we do it ourselves? Pick some of the cities in previous years and you will find particular solutions, but in certain areas like transport or energy management and so on. There are these examples not only of very large cities, but also medium-sized cities. And don't forget, there are many more medium-sized cities in the world, 100 times more than large cities.
So for those cities that aren't sure where to start or aren't confident, get out there and learn, because there's plenty to view.
Absolutely. And a small may be beautiful because you have room to learn, you have room to expand and so on, do the things that are possible. Small and medium-sized cities are also more manageable.